5 years ago, I built this wall-mounted desk. It was a simple project using basic tools, cheap pine, and an IKEA desktop. But like you, this desk has some dark secrets. The IKEA top is basically cardboard on the inside. There was no way to route cables around the brackets. And since this build, I've tried to love other desks with legs, but it's just not the same. So today, I'm building the wall-mounted desk 2.0. I'll be making my desktop out of walnut. Now you may be thinking that that's a very expensive material. And you may be right, but remember, it's a tree and it comes from the earth. And I had a cardboard desk for 5 years. I mean, come on, give me a break. Come to think of it, cardboard is a derivative of wood, right? So technically the cardboard came from earth as well, just from shit trees. I'm ripping the rough edges off the walnut on my table saw and then taking them to the floor where I'm arranging them to be visually stunning, like your mother. I'm really trying to bring mom jokes back. I'm actually alternating the wood grain to account for wood movement, like your mother. Can't stop now. Just gotta keep going. The biscuit joiner is going to help us align the boards for an easy glue up. One of the biggest mistakes people make in life is not getting a biscuit joiner. I usually place my biscuits about 8 to 12 inches apart. I'm not sure that it adds much strength to the joint, but it definitely helps with alignment. After labeling my boards using the alphabet, I took them down into my basement dungeon place. I did this for 2 reasons. 1, it's warm down there so the glue can cure. And 2, it's flat down there and my garage is not flat or level. And unexpected bonus reason 3, my wife will never come down there. It's so quiet. A couple of quick glue up tips. Alternate your clamps, bottom and top. Give you a nice even glue up. And dos, I don't know Spanish. Be liberal with your glue on the joint. Glue in the biscuit hole and on the actual biscuits. They'll suck up the glue and expand, giving you a nice tight joint. Cash money. I'm using a basic framer square to square off the edge and chop it off. A track saw is a great tool to do this. If you don't have a track saw, you can use a circular saw and a guide board. Because I'm doing a waterfall sort of effect, I need to surface plane towards the edge because that'll be hard to do once I glue this up. If you've never used a hand plane, you should really go out and grab a cheap one and try it. It's one of the best feelings in the world. That's a lie, but it's definitely like top 100 Sunday best hits. My track saw can make 45-degree cuts, and that's what I'll be doing to miter the edge. After I made the cut, I realized that the grain and the joints weren't lining up. So I was flipping it around, trying to figure it out, and realized if I take this to the other side of the desk, they'll line up perfectly. Now I think there's a better way to do this if I make 2 cuts on the same side and then flip it, reverse it. Did you just get Missy Ellioted? Yes, you did. So even though it's not an exact match of the grain, the joints line up and, now I know for next time. Using some run-of-the-mill painter's tape, I'm going to make this miter joint. Liberally apply glue, and then I'm going to come in with some clamps to clamp it up into place. And then I'm going to tighten the tape up. Tight tape. I always read about card scrapers, and I could never find them at Home Depot. So I finally ordered some online from a woodworking store, and it's just a piece of metal. Didn't come with any directions, so I just started scraping, and I think there's a better side. I figured out after a while, like one side would scrape better, but this thing was ruining my hands. Just like, yeah, sure, the glue was coming off, but so were my fingers. So eventually I just put gloves on, and it was great. It was fine. Why I didn't wear gloves to begin with, I don't know. I'm an idiot. Setting my table saw to 45 degrees, and I'm going to cut the front of the desk. Now this is uncharted water for me. It's going to be 3 miters, and it should fit in there perfectly if all goes to plan. Because this was a little bit impromptu, I need to cut off the end of the old face at 45 degrees. It's a little bit trickier now because I already glued up one side. So I was messing with it a little bit with my saw, but then realized I could just rip it off. It might have been an accident. I might have done it on purpose. You'll never know. It was an accident. I was trying to cut off the edge because now I need to cut a miter here. It just was not going as planned. I was trying to chisel it. It wasn't working, so I just realized I can turn the desk over and then cut it with my handsaw. Now that I have a plan in place, I'm going to join my second waterfall edge, but first, cut a miter in it. During the glue up, I'm going to use the tape and clamp method, just like before. Tight tape. Now that the main portion of the desk is prepped and ready for the front face, I'm going to cut the 2 final miters on each side so it fits in there like a glove. I go up to the desk, test it out, then back to the saw, and I kind of chip away at it so that I don't take off too much material, because you'll never get that back if you mess it up. Now this is where things start to get a little bit tricky because the miters were not perfect. So the front piece needed a little bit of persuasion in the form of bar clamps. After this glue up, I learned the nuances of the fine art of homemade walnut wood filler. And now, the fun part. One of the things that I thought was lacking from the original design was the thickness of the bracket. It seemed kind of flimsy for a desk. So I'm laminating 2 pieces of 3/4 inch walnut together to give me that thickness. Once the glue is dry, I'm going to run them through the jointer to square up the edge, and then I'm going to use that edge as a reference to cut it on the table saw to its final form. Thumbs up! Nope, I forgot. One more piece. There we go. Double thumbs up! I'm cutting the laminated pieces to their final sizes. The top piece is shorter than the back piece. Because I'll be using a butt joint, the top is going to butt up into the back piece. I'm hitting the desk with just a little bit of a 45-degree chamfer bit, also known as the 45 special. For this next part, I'll be using the Festool domino. I'll be putting 2 dominoes on each butt joint. As with all joints, layout is the most important part, so I'm just taking my time and setting my center line of where I want the dominoes to be. I'm repeating this process for the second bracket, and then I'll be ready for glue up. I'm liberally applying glue to the main butt joint, inside the mortise holes, and also to the dominoes, and then I'll bar clamp everything together. Forever. Forever, ever? Yeah, forever. Going to repeat that same process for the second bracket. Now you might be thinking at this point in the build, you'll never be able to build this because you don't have the right tools. But let's be honest, you never planned on building this anyway. Honesty is the foundation of love. Remember that. Or you could just build the original build with pocket screws like I did 5 years ago. Maybe. The middle bracket's going to be cut to 45 degrees on each side, and I'm going to attach 1 domino in each of those. I adjusted the Festool domino joiner plate so that I can get a domino straight into this 45-degree angle. The catch with this is one of the dominoes needs to be cut down a little bit so that it fits together properly. This is my first time really using the domino. Once you get it all lined up, it's very easy. You can control the depth and the size of the dominoes. Very user-friendly, which is important for a person like me. I cut one of the dominoes a little bit shorter off camera, and now I'm ready for glue up. Using a rubber mallet really comes in handy so that you don't mess up the piece when you're banging it into place. And another interesting thing that I kind of stumbled into was I had no way to secure these angles and clamp them down. So I used a couple of 45-degree offcuts with 90-degree ends to support my clamps. They worked flawlessly, mostly by accident. Just repeating that process at light speed for the other bracket. In order to properly mount these to the walls, I'm going to be using some lag bolts, and the heads are pretty thick. So I'm using a Forstner bit to give me a big enough hole that I can fit my ratchet in to tighten the bolt. And then I'm going to pre-drill with a bit just slightly smaller than the body of the bolt so that I don't crack the wood. The tabletop side is getting the same treatment, but with smaller holes because I'll only be using wood screws. I'm using a 3/4 inch router bit to route out a channel for all of my cables and cords. My advice would be to go a little bit deeper and a little bit wider than you think, because I had some non-standard size cords that wouldn't fit through, and now it's too late. And finally, I'm applying General Finishes Endurovar water-based urethane top coat in satin. Because I added the last minute changes to the desk, it's essentially hollow, and I want to show off the brackets because they're gorgeous, like your mother. So I need some spacers to prop up the desktop, and I'll be making them out of 3/4 inch plywood. I'm using a simple lamination process using glue and some brads. Next, I'm going to pre-drill, where I'm going to attach these to the tabletop, and I'm going to route out a little bit bigger of a hole with the drill bit to allow for wood movement. The thing with wall-mounted desks is they need to be mounted into wall studs, because you want to be able to hold a good amount of weight on the desk. Locate your wall studs, and then measure up from the floor where the bracket hardware is going to go through. Then I hold the bracket up just to get a good look at it, make sure everything's lining up where I need it to be. Level it out and then pre-drill into the wall studs. Get the bolts started in the bracket and ratchet them in far enough that just the tip is hanging out on the back edge. That way when we put it up against the wall, it will catch in your holes and make it a little bit easier, theoretically. Don't forget to use washers so that the bolt doesn't eat into your bracket. I'm going to repeat the same process for the other bracket. Put on the spacers and check for level. Level! Now I'm going to permanently attach the brackets to the tabletop. Finally, after 5 long years of using a cardboard desk and living in shame, I built the wall-mounted desk 2.0.